welcome, right? To this week's weekly breakdown, right? So for this week, we're basically gonna start off with our news calendar, right? On what we can basically expect, what can find itself happening over the course of this week, right? So we can see that Mr. Powell is basically speaking today, right? So we most definitely gonna get an actual nice little gap, right, over the course of the market open. So during midnight, right, we are gonna find ourselves having a lovely gap. So depending on where we're gonna find ourselves having the gap, right, if it is going to be a gap that is to the upside, right, then we can potentially find ourselves looking for some beautiful shorts over the course of for the rest of the week. And if it is a gap to the downside, then we can potentially see, further continuation moves up, right? So we're just gonna have to find ourselves monitoring that right there, right? And then importantly on Wednesday, right, FOMC, crucial one, right? That is happening at 8 o'clock. So that's outside of our trading hours, but yet again, you know what, that will be a huge fundamental that will be finding itself coming out, right? Thursday, we have, who's here? This nice initial jobless claims, right? That one will definitely have an impact in the market as well, right? And then on Friday, I don't really care about that, but it may potentially find itself also have a beautiful impact on the market as well. But ultimately, those that I didn't find myself boxing out to anything like that, it's not that they aren't important, right? You still have to find yourself coming to your economic calendar and just come and view, right, where you're going to find yourself placing your trades, because we do know that trades that's coming through at 4 o'clock, right, they tend to find itself having some sort of an actual, you can see during the New York Open that, there is some sort of a consolidation, right? Basically just a consolidation waiting for this news event to find itself opening up first and then find itself having some sort of momentum in the market, right? So it is super important to find yourself also coming back to your economic calendar, right? And then another thing for this week is basically earnings, right? So we can basically see that on the 21st, right? This will basically be Tuesday, if I'm correct. Yes, that will be Tuesday. Then we basically have, JP Morgan releasing their earnings, right? So that will definitely have an impact in the market. And then on Wednesday, we do have two big ones, right? Two big ones, massive ones. We have Amazon and we have Nvidia that's going to find themselves releasing their actual their earnings as well, right? So as we do know, last time NASDAQ just found itself flying to the upside, and everyone was like, most probably like, yo, what's happening, right? It was Nvidia earnings that found themselves coming out, and we just flew towards the upside, right? So with that being said, you know what, I'm also expecting some beautiful earnings on these actual two companies, right? As they are quite, they are, definitely, having some sort of an actual impact when it comes down to the NASDAQ. So yeah, those two on Wednesday. So Wednesday is a big day for us, as we also do have FOMC coming out the evening as well. So, Wednesday is a big day for us. And then just on Tuesday, we need to find ourselves also being quite cautious, as we do have, JP Morgan, them finding themselves releasing their earnings. Okay, so that's that when it comes down to the actual fundamental part of things, where we just have to be quite reactive, right, when it comes down to our actual our trading whatsoever. Okay, so looking at my DXY, right? So on the DXY, we basically said that, we find ourselves tapping within this beautiful area of demand, and we find ourselves having a beautiful shift towards the upside from this area onwards, right? But now currently we can see that, we are having a quite strong bearish momentum towards the downside, right? We still do have 12 days and 8 hours for this candle to find itself closing, right? So there is still a lot that can find itself happening within 12 days and 8 hours, right? Now, one thing that you can find yourself doing is the following, right? Just find yourself boxing out this week right over there, right? The previous month's week. So if price is basically going to find itself taking out the previous month's week, right? This simply means that our base is trying to step in the market and, you know what, wanting to push price lower, right? So this simply means that we can expect some lower PA when it comes down to our actual DXY. Okay. Looking at the weekly time frame, the weekly time frame is the one that I'm always finding myself having my eye out on when it comes down to this pair, the DXY, right? So we can basically see we have been creating some beautiful higher lows, right? So what we can do is just grab a nice little trend line, just like that. First touch, second touch, if I maybe can zoom price in, just like that. First touch, second touch, and there we can basically see that we had a third touch, right? Now, with this actual third touch, we didn't find ourselves having a, you know what, I want to say a massive reaction from, right? So this simply means that there's a high possibility that we can still find ourselves having that actual pushback towards the downside, right? So what I would like to see is, you know what, this up close candle right over there is basically just a correction on a lower time frame, right? So I would like to see if we can find ourselves having some sort of an actual pullback into this area and then have an actual shift back towards the downside, basically just taking out liquidity right over there. And if we can find ourselves having that actual closure below the trend line, right, this simply means that we can potentially find ourselves having an actual further deeper retracement, and the next area will basically be, you know what, this swing low we have found ourselves creating right over there, right? So as if this week, I definitely want to see price at least taking out, you know what, my sell side liquidity right over there, right? And if we can basically have some sort of a closure below over the course of this week, then obviously next week, I may find myself having my eye out on this swing low right over there. But as if now, you know what, our actual DXY is presenting us with some beautiful bearish momentum. Okay, beautiful bearish momentum. Even by looking at the daily time frame, we can see that we have this beautiful low to a market then creating a beautiful lower low right over there, right? And if I can get up my FUB from my actual high to my low, just like that, right? A further a deeper retracement back into the actual, you know what, my premium area will be appreciated as well, right? As this could be a potential area to where we can then find ourselves having that actual shift back towards the downside, right? Or maybe something like that finding itself happening. So on the DXY, I am still currently bearish as price is basically, you know what, presenting some bearish momentum for me. Okay, now let's go to this beautiful pair called the NASDAQ. Now, on the NASDAQ, right? Ultimately, on the NASDAQ, I was expecting some further continuation moves back towards the downside, right? At least back into this region right over here, which was a previous area of resistance, now basically turned into support, or basically a lower region which is basically the same as that one, right? Previous area of resistance now basically turned into support. But unfortunately, all price found itself doing was literally coming back into a beautiful fair value gap as we created right over there, and prices found itself having a beautiful shift back towards the upside. Now, the exact same thing as what I made mention on the DXY, right? We can see that on the previous week, well, the previous month, we have found ourselves taking out the previous month's candle, right? The week of the previous month. So this simply means that our bulls is strongly in control, right? And me, Diego, I'm moving strictly off price action, right? Strictly off price action. So this simply means that our bulls is in control and they want to find themselves pushing price a little bit higher, right? They want to find themselves pushing price a little bit higher. So with that being said, I am still somewhat bullish on the NASDAQ, right? I am still somewhat bullish on my NASDAQ. Okay, so looking at current price action, that's what we have on our weekly time frame. Right now, on the weekly time frame, right, we can basically see that currently we have found ourselves taking out liquidity right over there, which is coming through as my actual buy side liquidity. right? Or basically you can just look at it as a break of structure as well. Just a fancy word of saying that we have created a higher high, right? So price basically remained in its bullish momentum, right? And we can also see that we have found ourselves taking out sell side liquidity right over here as well. So this simply means that, you know what, we are bullish in structure, right? We are bullish in structure. Check this out. If I can maybe do that, that, and that, right? And just find myself removing the charts as well. Hide the charts. There we can basically see that this low has been violated, right? And there we can see that the high has been violated, right? So now we are basically back bullish in structure on our weekly time frame. Okay, so on my weekly time frame, the area I have my eye out on currently will basically be this last up close candle we have found ourselves creating right over there, which will be currently serving as my actual breaker, right? So I would love to see over the course of this week some sort of an actual pushback into this area for a lovely shift back towards the upside, right? We can see within this actual breaker, we have found ourselves creating a fair value gap right over here as well. So you can just keep your eye out on this actual fair value gap over here as well, right? But to me personally, you know, this fair value gap is quite deep. 500 plus pops to the downside, right? Which is quite a lot. Do I think that that can happen? There is a possibility of it happening, but you know what? I would just love to see some sort of an actual tap and some sort of an actual shift to the upside. But it's always best to always find yourself preparing for worst case scenario as well. Okay, so scaling down to my daily time frame, right? So on my daily time frame, I'll just find myself keeping these actual areas open as how it is currently, right? So on my daily time frame, what I will find myself doing, you know what, my community would know, we have found ourselves tapping, well, boxing out this inversion fee value gap right over here. Bang, right? And this actual inversion fee value gap we have found ourselves creating right over here will basically be the area I will have my eye out on if we can find ourselves having that actual deeper retracement to the downside, right? So from this area onwards, including this actual fee value gap right over here, this will basically be the area where I will find myself looking on being quite reactive with price, right? Basically just saying this would be the area I would love to see some longs finding itself opening up. Okay, so on the NASDAQ, as if now I am currently bullish on the NASDAQ, right over here, we can see we had some sort of an actual pullback. So if I can get up my foot from this low to our current high, just like that, right? I would like to see some sort of a pullback. It does not need to be back into my discounted area, right? The only reasoning to why I'm saying that is simply because we do have a breaker over here, right? And if we would have to find ourselves coming into this discounted area, maybe have some sort of a closure below this actual area right over here, our breaker, right? This simply means that we can potentially have a further continuation move back towards the downside. Okay, that's why I won't be surprised if we don't see the actual 50%, right? But a next area I will basically have my eye out on an extension area will basically be the closest will basically be 9,000, right? It will be 19,000, not 9,000, my apologies. It will be 19,000. And then after 19,000, we can basically look at 19,300 as an actual target for the NASDAQ to find itself heading up to. But as if now, 19,000 will basically be the target to where I would love to see the NASDAQ reach into. Okay, so me, Diego, I am still bullish on my actual NASDAQ, right? And if you have any questions whatsoever, you know what, just drop it in the comment section. Okay, and if you find yourself taking away something, hit the like, hit the subscribe button. I will highly appreciate it. Much love from me. I'm out.